today on Steelers Country Weekly, we break down the Steelers' big last-second win against the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, really look ahead to the bye week, enjoy some time off from the Steelers, and then we're going to recap the Steelers season so far now that we're almost to the halfway point. Bye week coming up in Week 7, maybe the potential return on Le'Veon Bell, who knows. I'm Nick DiTullio, and as always, I am joined by the world-famous accountant Eric Van Schoten. Eric, how are you on this fine Sunday evening?
It was very celebratory. Good day. I was definitely a little anxious towards the end, but, it was an exciting, hard-fought game, and glad to see that we came out with a W.
Yeah, that was a really clean game considering the two teams. There weren't really many penalties. There weren't many cheap shots that I saw. There was one that we'll probably talk about that I think we both probably caught. Very few mistakes. Steelers had a couple tipped balls, including a Ben Roethlisberger pass to himself, which ended up being the only time Ben Roethlisberger took a hit today, if you can even call it that. This was just a game where neither team really made that many mistakes. Many individual mistakes. I mean, the Steelers probably could have put the ball in the end zone at least two more times on drives where the Bengals' red zone defense stalled them at the 1 or within the 5 both times. The Bengals obviously on the last drive, gave up a huge touchdown, what ended up being the game-winning touchdown to Antonio Brown on some blown coverage. Same thing with big plays. So it was nice to see just a clean, good football game out of these two teams without a lot of sloppiness, without a lot of chippiness, anything like that. It was just a good, solid football game.
Absolutely. I thought that both sides played pretty well. I think Andy definitely had a much better game than the stats would. Not even statistically did he have a bad game, but could have been even better. A lot of his wide receivers were dropping balls, particularly in the beginning of the day. I think conditions played a factor. In the play calling, I think that the Steelers definitely relied on the downhill running style of James Conner today. I think that was evident. It's still nice to get Ben with 369 yards receiving, but I think overall just playing two complete games in a row, but I think this one might even be more impressive than the Falcons game, just because I thought the opponent brought a complete game as well, and we were tested, and we fought through it and had to make adjustments, and I think the defense played overall pretty well.
Yeah, there was one play in particular I wasn't a big fan of, and that was Artie Burns once again got burned on a touchdown pass. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was... I think it was just a simple out route, and he bit hard, but wide open touchdown. Been seeing a lot of those lately from Artie Burns, so hopefully he can get it together. We did not have a missed field goal today, so that was good too. We were hoping... Yeah, I texted you, well, this is a good time to get over the yips as any. And luckily it ended up going out of his hands completely. They didn't even let him kick the extra point because they went for 2. But yes, this was a very complete game. This is a game that the Steelers have the talent to be capable of winning. And the thing I thought was the most interesting was I thought the game as a whole was a very good microcosm of the Steelers' season so far, specifically with Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger. Antonio Brown was very quiet all game until the end of the game and in the fourth quarter when he had one big, must have been a 40-plus yard reception, and then he had the 30-yard, what at the time was the go-ahead eventual winning touchdown. To me, that speaks to me in the sense that when you have star players, if they really are a star, regardless of what's been going on, regardless of the drama, they show up when you need them to the most. And they needed Ben and they needed Antonio more than they have in any single game, I would say, at that moment right there in the fourth quarter. The Steelers were probably just trying to get close to the end zone for a field goal, and they ended up scoring and really shutting down the Bengals. So I love seeing that. I love seeing Antonio step up like that and Ben connecting with him. Juju Smith-Schuster, another big-time player who's really coming into his own this year, had this insane catch. It was a bomb.
Did you understand that call? Like, I don't understand how he was short of the goal when he didn't even have possession until he was in the end zone.
Honestly, I don't think they really felt there was enough evidence of anything to overturn whatever they said on the field. Quite honestly, I'm still not even sure how he even caught the ball.
Yeah.
But to me, it looked like
he picked up the cornerback's head with it, but
yeah, to me, it looked like he was literally on his head at the 1 yard line and slid in. So I thought it should be a touchdown, but I mean, it all worked out in the end, I guess. But yeah, that was probably the most ridiculous catch of his career. I remember I specifically thought that it was an interception until he did a somersault and popped up with the ball in his hand. And everyone at Martino's went nuts because I guess they were thinking the same thing that we were, because it was a jump ball and it looked like the defender had the better position and somehow Juju wrestled it away from him.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was the consensus where I was at too. And, we always talk about it. It's just moments where you need a player to step up, and Juju had a big catch. Antonio and Ben connecting on the end of the game. Now, I will give Bengals fans a little bit of comfort. I really don't know what the rule is on that. It looked like an illegal block downfield, but you know what? Whatever it is, they had the chance to call it. They didn't call it. I still think the Steelers would have come out with a victory there. It's just what it seemed like it was trending towards, but what a firework way to come out. And kudos to the offensive line. Getting a 100-yard rusher today. Ben just... I think there was a stat line late in the game, and I don't know what it ended up being. I don't think he had a pressure. So, he didn't not just get knocked down, he didn't get sacked, he didn't have pressure on him, which I don't understand how they measure that. But I thought that was phenomenal. I think that's a testament of how well our offensive line played today and was they had to be the team MVP today, the offensive line. I know people look at the stats. They'll give it to Ben, they'll give it to Juju, they'll give it to James. But I think it was the offensive line and how well they played to give those playmakers the ability to put up those statistics.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how they measure the pressure stats either, but 0 sacks, 0 knockdowns. He was flushed out a couple times, but it really wasn't with too big of a sense of urgency. So yeah, the offensive line did really well. Ian Eagle actually made a point too that the line, I don't know if he actually spoke to anyone or not, but he said it must be nice for the line to be blocking for Connor instead of Bell, because Connor is more of a there's the play call, there's the hold, that's where I'm running, whereas Le'Veon Bell, as we know, is very patient. He waits for things to develop. So it's just much harder to block in anticipation of where you think Bell is going to go. But maybe they showed their appreciation today by sticking where they're at, giving Ben the protection he needs. When it comes to the illegal block or the offensive pass interference, whatever you want to call it, I mean, someone who I really haven't talked to since high school decided to go at me on Facebook today because of that. He's also a Packers fan, so I don't know why he felt he had a dog in the fight here. But regardless, I don't know about you, but I'm never going to blame the refs for costing the Steelers a game or anything like that. I'm a very big proponent of controlling what you can control. I think you have to go into the game expecting that there's going to be some blown calls because that's just human nature. So you have to do the things you can do. No turnovers. The Steelers came close a couple times, but they did not turn the ball over. No stupid penalties. Obviously, there was no personal fouls, no stupid, unnecessary roughness penalties, things like that. And just playing smart, which on the whole, both teams did. So I think it's a little silly and ignorant to try to blame the refs if there's any fans out there who are doing that. But, I'm just watching the Chiefs and Patriots, and Tom Brady just fumbled, so good on them.
Did they turn it over?
Yes, Chiefs recovered.
Nice.
So, you know what? If you want to blame the refs, take it not you, but in general, if you want to blame the refs, take it somewhere else, because if you expect that the refs are going to be perfect, then I'm sorry, you're just a fool. But
that's 62 cents.
I mean, control the things you can control. I can't make it any clearer than that. The Steelers were literally one big mistake away from losing this game, but because on the whole they controlled what they could control, they end up walking out with the win in what was definitely the biggest and most important game of their year so far. They were at risk of going winless against their division opponents after one matchup each. Bengals, on the other hand, had a chance to go 5-1, extend their lead. Instead, they don't. But I wanted to talk, too, about Vontaze Burfict. It was interesting today because I thought for sure he was going to get thrown a flag for leading with his helmet against Antonio Brown. And Antonio ran a slant across the middle. He was being held up by two Bengal players. Vontaze comes in, leads with the helmet, knocks Brown out for a couple plays, and knocked his own player out. So I'm interested to see if the league finds him, because they do go back and review these plays. We know that T.J. Watt was fined $20,000 for a hit on Matt Ryan. But I'm wondering at what point does Vontaze Burfict become too much of a liability for the Bengals? I personally think we're well past that point, but he's literally out there knocking out his own teammates because of his rough play.
Yeah, I do get that, but I think that he makes a lot of impact plays, both positively and negatively. And if they were ever going to get rid of him, they would have done it by now. Also, this is a franchise that doesn't like change. I mean,
Marvin Lewis
is still there, barring no playoff wins, and the same amount of tenure as Bill Belichick. So I just think that, I don't think there's a doubt, and I don't think it's a Steelers bias either, that Burfict is a dirty player. He does plays against non-Steelers players as well, where he'll intentionally go after players. And I think he's a reckless player. Really, I feel like I'm conflicted. I don't know if he's doing it for selfish reasons, but his own pride to make a play happen, and he doesn't care who gets in his way, or he's so caring about the team, and he's a team player, and he's putting it all out there, and he just can get clumsy at times. I don't know. I think it's more the former. I think he's just kind of selfish, and he wants to be known as something greater, but really he's got a horrible image, and it's not getting better. But the defense has, in the weeks prior, had made a lot of great plays, and I think a lot of people will tell you that perfect is the centerpiece of their defense. So I don't think they're going to go away from him there.
Yeah, I mean, if it hasn't happened yet, it won't already. It won't now. But he's Cincinnati's problem every game. He's the Steelers' problem for 2 to 3 games a year. So at least we have that to be happy about, I guess, if you will. But in any case, the Steelers steal a win from the Bengals, 28-21. They now sit at 3-2-1. And definitely took the right steps to saving this season for themselves. So, the Steelers are going into a bye week. This is a pretty big bye week. It comes at almost the midpoint of the season, week 7. So, I don't know about you, but I typically prefer it when the bye weeks come a little bit later, just to help down the stretch if your team's going to be a playoff contender. So, still a little earlier than I would prefer it, but definitely not as bad as some of those week 4 or week 5 teams that had a bye. But
definitely, but I mean, I think that considering how uneven our play has been early in the season, we've gotten we've got back-to-back wins. We're sitting half a game behind. And if you look towards next week, the Bengals have the Chiefs, who are now tied against the Patriots, so they're about to be, and so they're one of the hottest teams and best teams in football. So hard matchup for the Bengals to go into.
In prime time,
the Ravens are playing against the Saints, which that's a 4-1 team as well. The Ravens had themselves one heck of a game today against the Titans, but I just think that we have 2 division foes going against quality opponents. The Steelers could be on top of the division while not playing a game next week. So, an interesting position to be in, and I had a stark opinion that I'm going to continue to have, but if the Steelers strategically want to employ Le'Veon and he actually wants to come in, then I guess now's the time to do it. I say you just have a guy who has 7 rushing touchdowns in the year through 6 games, and when the Steelers have given him the ample ability to get his feet going, he's proven to be able to take over a game. So I would tell Le'Veon, you're fine. You can sit on the bench. But that's my viewpoint. I know it's not the most business-savvy one, but if I was speaking frankly about long-term business, I think James Conner is our future running back, and I wouldn't want to make him feel otherwise with a person that the writing's on the wall. Le'Veon's not going to be in Pittsburgh Steelers uniform in 2019 and beyond, so get him out of there.
Yeah, that's the fear though with that Bell. I'm assuming more so Bell's agent has, but is that the Steelers know that and they're just going to max him out as much as possible and run him to the ground. Now, that's one way to look at what the Steelers could do and then preserve James Conner for next year, but I am interested to see how they choose to handle this. Bell told ESPN reporter Jeremy Fowler that he's coming back during the bye week. He hasn't actually told the team yet, so it still is up in the air, in my opinion, whether he actually comes back or not. We do know that he will be back. I believe it's week 10 is the last week he could report and still be a free agent next off season. But yeah, I'm with you. I don't think he comes back to the Steelers. I think they retain James Conner. They've got him under contract for 2 more years on his rookie contract. So they don't really have to worry about spending a lot on him. And I don't know what they do with that salary cap space. Maybe they go try to get a free agent to help on the defensive side of the ball this offseason. But it will be nice to have that money to be able to use it if they want to, or just honestly hold on to it in case of emergency situations or injury situations. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting bye week. Do you think Le'Veon's actually going to report?
I think he. You know what? I think that he's gonna wait until the very last week. I really do. I think that it's clear to both sides that he's not going to be a Steeler. So, and to him, obviously, money doesn't matter. So, even getting a free $850,000 this week, but putting himself out there for 3 additional games, I think, leading up to where the last week he can actually come in and still be a free agent. I don't think he's going to do it.
Yeah, I think he'll come back. I'm kind of torn because it makes sense to come back now, but at the same time, he's held out this long, so it's another 3 games. Yeah, I think he'll wait it out a little longer. He seems to be having a good time with his nightclubs and his album launch parties and whatever else he's doing down in South Beach right now.
Yeah.
And the thing that's important to remember, too, is these losses that the Steelers have, with the exception of perhaps the Ravens game, the losses in the tie, I should say. I don't think they were really missing him too much. There was some other things that could have been done to get wins in those situations, but the rushing attack was really not one of them per se. Ravens game was terrible just because across the board no one could do anything outside the second quarter. So having Le'Veon Bell would be nice to try to get another star in the field to get something going. But yeah, I think the Steelers aren't desperate for him, and maybe that's part of the reason why he's staying away. Hey, they don't need me, so everybody wins in his mind, I guess. But yeah, I don't think Le'Veon's going to be a Steeler next year. I think they're going to stick with Connor. As far as the rest of the season goes, when he gets back, I think they'll probably use him in strategic situations, assuming he's in game shape. And we know that there's a big difference between in shape and in game shape, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want them to break the mojo just because he comes in and unfortunately, like, Tomlin's a player coach, so he's still going to try to make him happy, but I don't know. I think this team is turning a corner without him, and I definitely don't think it's on the running end of what our weakness is after this bye week and what we're trying to figure out. So I'd love for him to stay on the couch.
Well, we shall see pretty shortly. So, Steelers are obviously going into a bye week. No opponent for us to preview this time. We've been kind of talking just kind of vaguely and in general about how the season has gone so far. I don't know about you, Eric. It's been very frustrating at times, but overall, the season has been kind of what we typically expect or have come to expect from a Steelers season, particularly over the last 5 or 6 years. They're going to start off not really clicking, lose some games that they probably shouldn't, and then they seem to get things right toward the early to mid point of the year, and then they're pretty fine from there on out. They were looking very good against the Ravens, which was the last game they lost, and then in the second half they just kind of sputtered, but since then they seem to have gotten things under control against Atlanta and against the Bengals. Nothing stupid, no big injuries yet. The only big thing that's missing from them, I would say Le'Veon Bell, and if you want to count Ryan Shazier, I would throw him out there as well. Those are the two things that are missing from the team right now, but it seems like they've finally got their feet underneath them. They know what's going on. They're not making stupid mistakes. They're catching their rhythm. So the bye comes at a time where it seems like they finally are clicking on all cylinders and are looking to make big wins as they come up.
No, definitely. I'm excited for this team. This is what we've been looking for all season long. And I don't know. As soon as we figure out the secondary, obviously Artie's spot is a question mark. I like the play that Mike Hilton came today. He's more of a slot coverage guy, but I think the task is on Kevin Butler to really hide our Achilles heel. And I thought at times today we played to where we could not have that exposed, but Tyler Boyd did shred us today. And I think that has a little bit to do with Joe Hayden had good coverage on A.J. Green, but going forward, I think that is definitely still in the window of sight of what are we going to do with the secondary issue. And I don't think it's going to come overnight, but definitely in this bye week, I expect them to kind of experiment a little bit with some different packages and different players.
Yeah, I think that's important to point out, though, that I personally think that secondary is dependent on Joe Hayden. So if Joe Hayden gets hurt, I don't think we've got the manpower really to go toe-to-toe with anyone. Keep in mind, last week Hayden shadowed Julio Jones. Now, you might know, I didn't notice because I was also listening over the bar's loudspeakers, but was he shadowing A.J. Green today?
Yes, I believe so, from what I can tell.
Okay, so that's 2 weeks in a row where he's shadowed two of the top, I'd say top 5 receivers in the game. Maybe top 7 if you want to put A.J. Green a little lower. And they've been pretty quiet. So he's having some really good games. It seems to me like their plan is, let's let Joe go at their strength and shut them down and hope that the rest of the team can cover the other guys. So if Joe Hayden goes down, it won't be good news for the defense, and they'll have to go back to Big Ben passing the ball 60 times a game, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. So, 3-2-1, not exactly the record that either of us had hoped for, but they're above 500. They're still in good standing in the division and in the AFC. You pointed out that the Bengals and the Ravens both have 2 tough games next week. Ravens against the Saints, Bengals against the Chiefs. It's important to point out, too, that the Chiefs-Bengals game will be in prime time in Kansas City. So those are not games that Andy Dalton historically performs well in, as well as the fact that the Chiefs are the hottest team in the league right now. Also worth noting that the Patriots are sitting at 3-2 and up 4 points on the Chiefs with 10.5 minutes left. They, at this point, it's kind of odd, but I'm wanting the Chiefs to pull away here as they nearly return this kickoff for a touchdown. I'm kind of expecting the Chiefs to either implode or not be a serious playoff threat against the Steelers. I think that New England could still be, though, which is why it's interesting to see them even at 3-2, let alone potentially 3-3.
Oh, well, I mean, they're always dangerous. I mean, even if they're dead in the water, they were winless at this point, I'd still, at New England, going against the Chiefs, I still wouldn't count them out. So, and I don't know what it is. Like, Brady's playing well, but, like, he's not playing absurdly great, and it's not like the defense is amazing either. But Sonny Michel, he's looking pretty good, but it's just they're always doing something, and I don't know. This is it's kind of a weird playoff picture. Actually, if you look at the playoff picture in itself, it's strange that you have so you have Chiefs. It's not that weird to think about, but like it's the Chiefs, Bengals, Dolphins, Titans, Chargers, Baltimore. That would be your playoff picture right now. I think the Patriots might, hop into the playoff pictures as they won tonight, but it's just weird to see that when, like, teams like the Steelers are not in it. Texans have been kind of a mainstay in the playoffs lately. Denver had some good years. Jacksonville, who knocked the Steelers out last year, they just got blown out by the Cowboys today. So, I think that what we're seeing going at our bye week is just there has been some underperforming teams so far, and we'll just have to see how everything shakes out. The middle of the picture, because outside of the Rams and Chiefs, like, no one's really run away with it, and it's still a pretty tight race. So we'll just I'm excited to see where we land from this, because looking at our future schedule, the next two games are within division, and like we talked about, on top of the division, they're playing two good teams, so very good chance to, as you said in the beginning of the year, still take care of business early in the year, and even though it didn't go quite as planned, could still be in the position we want them to be, which is on top of the AFC North.
Definitely. All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good note to end on. It's optimistic. We talked about the big win against the Bengals. We kind of recapped the year so far. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we sign off for the week?
No, big win. Again, there's hopefully Big Ben took those offensive linemen out to a nice buffet or a steak dinner tonight. They deserve it.
Some Primanti brothers for sure, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for us, folks. This has been another episode of the GameHouse.com's Steelers Country Weekly. For the world-famous accountant Eric Van Minchoten, I'm Nick DiTullio. We'll see you next time.